1 Samuel chapter 25. Alright, so we read the story and then you try to answer some questions as well. Chapter 25, now verses 1. Alright, let's read from verses 1 to verse 14 first. Alright, verse 1 to verse 14. So understand the story, alright? And Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him, and buried him in his house at Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. And there was a man in the mud whose possessions were in Carmel. And the man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding and of beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. And Nathan heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men. And David sent to the young men, "Get you up to Carmel, and go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus shall ye say to him that liveth in prosperity, Peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now thy sheep which were with us, we hurt them not, neither was there aught missing unto them. All the while they were in Carmel. Ask thy young men, and they will show thee. Wherefore let the young men find favor in thine eyes, for we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand, unto thy servants, and to thy son David." And when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all these words in the name of David, and ceased. And Nabal answered David's servants, and said, "Who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays, that break away every man from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water, and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers, and give it unto men, whom I know not whence they be?" So David's young men turned their way and went again, and came and told him all those things. And David said unto his men, "Gird ye every man on his sword." And they girded on every man his sword. And David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the staff. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, "Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness, and salute my master," and he rallied on them. May God bless the reading of His word. Now, so here the question is this. Now, was it wrong for Nabal to refuse to provide the assistance to David, assistance that David requested? Was it wrong? Okay, then question number 2. Was David right to expect that Nabal agreed to his request for help? As it turned out later, it was more than a demand, for what he wanted from Nabal, based on his intention to exact physical harm to Nabal and his household, out of indignation at Nabal's insult earlier on. Alright, so we read, here is a case where this man Nabal, he had a lot of sheep, and David, at the time of sheep shearing, sent his men to request that they give his men and David some things. Alright, so Nabal refused, and we heard what he said. So, first part, is it right for David to expect Nabal to agree to his help? Was it right or not? And it looks like David's demand was a demand. If you don't give me, I will come and kill you. That's why he tells the people, well, gird up your sword. He brought a lot of men many men to go and confront Nabal. In fact, later on we read even wanting to kill him. So, was it right for Nabal to refuse? Was it right for David to expect? What do you think? What do you think? Maybe ask fathers, all right? Fathers, Alex. First part, was it right for Nabal to refuse?
Probably not.
Probably not. Why?
Because, like, he didn't know whether he pretended he didn't know who that was, or by constant. He knew, and he just pretended to not know. We don't know what state of mind he was in at that point in time.
So maybe he knew David, maybe he pretended he don't know who David was and don't want to give him anything. But even if he knew David, why should he give him something? Howard?
I think the background was that David might have protected Nabal.
So the background is David did protect Nabal's sheep and livestock, and protected his people as well. All right, so then he should be able to expect something. Now, is it really true that he protected? Now, let's read verse 15 and 15 to 17 together. 15 to 17, reading. But the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt. Neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversant with them when we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us both night and day, all the while we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now therefore know that consider what thou wilt do, for the evil is determined against our master and against all his household. For he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. Okay? So the people attested that David's men did protect him. How well? Like a wall to them. So they felt very secure, very safe, and they did a lot to protect them, almost like a wall. And they did not take their sheep, although they were powerful, they were strong. They were there to keep them away, keep the robbers away, so that the sheep will be safe. So even then, they did not just say, well, you know, while we protect, we also steal some sheep or take some sheep. They waited. They waited until the sheep shearing time. Now, so is it wrong for Nabal to refuse? Maybe ask the young ones. Matthew, is it wrong? Nabal, no, not giving you anything. Not sure. Okay, not sure. Now, in those days, it is common, all right? It is understood that it's common that there are some people that offer protection from robbers and even from wild animals as they live along certain farms. And also remember that to God's people, God did give the injunction that when you harvest, now you are to leave some for the poor that live around the borders, right? So there is this understanding. So in those days, will it be absolutely wrong for David to ask? Is it wrong for Nabal to refuse? Now, by and large, people would, when they know that their people have been protected and their sheep have been protected and these people have been kind, they would be kind and they would give them something, because they are people that need food as well. So by and large, people would do that, right? People would do that. Now, how do we know that? Now, because if you look at where is it? Okay, look at verse 14. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he rallied against them. So even the servants say, you know, the masters response of shouting, scolding, chasing them away was not suitable. All right, not suitable. They came, they greeted, and they spoke nicely to our master, but he rallied against them. All right, so and the people knew that it is not something that was nice. Now, can Nabal not give anything? Was it wrong? I would say that, well, it is Nabal's stock. If he chooses not to, no one can say that he has committed a sin. But it is not like, now he's from Caleb, from the house of Caleb. Nabal should know what the Israelites practice. All right, so it's something that he would refuse to follow God's ways. Now, ultimately, if he still refused, was it right for David to expect? Was it right for David to expect? Now, by and large, you would see that David was not expecting, as in you owe it to me and you must kind of thing, because of how David sent the young man. Now, he says, greet him in my name, verse 5. Greet him in my name. And he gave very specific instructions of what to say. Listen carefully in verse 6. Now he keep wishing him peace. Means this is a respectful, a wishing well, no ill intention kind of greeting in verse 6. Now verse 7 he explains. Because David knew that is how typically things are. So he said, I don't want to take it for granted and just ask. I want to make sure he understands what I'm asking is reasonable. And I'm asking very respectfully. It's reasonable and I'm doing it very respectfully. Now, that's why in verse 7 he says, now you have heard. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. And now he said, your shearers, that when they were with us, we did not hurt them. We could have killed your shearers and just taken their sheep. But no, we were there to protect. Neither was there any missing. No sheep were missing. Right? Means your sheep, they keep giving birth, they keep growing. They did not miss anything. And not only that, he said, ask thy young man, verse 8. Now if you don't believe. Now, so he was very careful. I'm not asking something unreasonable. I'm not a gangster that is I'm forcing you to give me things. I'm asking on this basis. I'm requesting on this basis. So was David expecting that you must give me? Now at this stage he just said, I want you to even confirm in verse 8. Ask the young men, and they will show you. They will prove to you that what I'm saying is true. Then he's so respectful, he's more careful, even more careful in verse 8. Wherefore, now because of that, let the young men find favor in thine eyes. Right? Let the young men, let these people that are sent, now let them find favor. They were the ones also protecting your people. Will you be gracious to them? Look upon them with favor. Not very humble. Then he says, I pray thee, means I plead with you. I ask please. Whatsoever cometh to thine hand. He's not even saying, you must give me so many. He said, whatever comes to your hand, you want to give, you give. All right? He did not demand specific numbers. Give to thy hand and to thy son David. You see, he was so humble. He even said to thy son David. Means he's acknowledging him as someone that he sees as superior, someone above him, and he humbly calls himself, I'm your son. All right? Acknowledging him like his father. So this was extreme humility on David's part. So David was not expecting in that sense, but he does, based on how things were and what Israel were always taught to live by, it is not wrong for him to go and ask for that. All right? So I answered according to the question, so I answered that. Now, but what about, as it turned out later, he went to demand. He said, I'm going to kill. I'm going to kill. Now, what about that? Was David demanding? Was David demanding? Now, David's reaction was sinful. All right? David's reaction was sinful. His first reaction, his first request and all that were all proper. But his problem was his reaction. He became angry and he wanted to kill. Now that is wrong. Right? So don't mix that two up. We do not condone his follow-up behavior of wanting to exert violence on the people. would he feel indignant? Would he feel angry? Well, I think it's understandable that he would feel angry, but it does not justify his actions. Okay, so that's how we must understand this passage. Now, what are the lessons to learn? All right, so maybe fathers can teach the children understanding the passage. Now, what are the lessons to learn then? Thomas, what will you teach Julius when you're teaching him this passage? Don't go and do things for free.
When you want to do good, do it out of the goodness of your heart and not expecting anything in return. Yeah, that's what I want.
All right. So when you want to do good, when you help others, do it out of the good of your heart. Don't expect returns. If the people do not appreciate, they don't accede to your request for help. When you need help, then so be it. Then so be it. Right? So that's how we should function. Right? So that's a good lesson. There was a good lesson. Now, should you then say, well, by right, they should help, you know? Would you want to take revenge? So David wanted to take action himself. Now, do you think it's something that God condoned? Nabal's case, his behavior. What do you think? Jonathan?
I don't think so, based on what happened to him later on.
Okay, based on what happened to him later on. Let's turn to chapter 24, verse 38. Chapter 24, verse 38. Well, let's read verse 37 and 38. Reading. But it came to pass in the morning, are you there? When the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And it came to pass about 10 days after that the Lord smote Nabal, and he died. That the Lord smote Nabal, and he died. So God did, in a sense, punish Nabal. Vengeance belongs to God. Alright, so a few lessons to learn. Yes, sometimes we even feel, no, it is not right. They should help in return. Should or should not. At the end of the day, we don't take revenge. We don't take actions into our own hands. We just accept, well, you know, we've done this. They should be helpful towards us. We were so humble, we were so careful. They still are like that. Then I leave it to the Lord. I leave it to the Lord. The Lord will provide us somehow. The Lord will provide us somehow. Please don't say, Lord, please strike them with a heart attack and kill them, alright? Vengeance is how the Lord wants to deal with it. It's up to the Lord. Just accept the situation and learn to trust God to help. So that on both sides. So the fact that God says he smote Nabal and he died also teaches us to learn not only about how David responded. You do things, you be humble, you know, you request for help humbly, even you think they should rightly help you, you still be very humble. And if they don't, then leave it to the Lord. Right? Don't take things into your own hands. But what can we learn in the case of Nabal? In the case of Nabal. Maybe John Xiaobing. What can we learn from the case of Nabal? Buy insurance.
Actually, he has a evil character.
He's a what, sorry?
He was an evil character.
Yep, Charlie's. Mm-hmm.
And he's not changed.
He's not?
Changed, and he hasn't had any compassion to others.
Mm-hmm. He even when he heard that all the problems, he doesn't change. Even people are very kind, very humble, and he's not compassionate. All right, he's not compassionate. He knows Well, he can even confirm. If he doesn't believe, David's men already say, you can confirm with your people. But he can't even be bothered. And he was very rude, right? He was very heartless. He said, who do I know these people? Who cares? He looked down on David because he probably knew that David was on the run. Well, these people are on the run. They are nothing. Well, maybe if King Saul asked me, I'll do something. All right? So, now, no compassion. What else can we learn? Colin.
It's wrong in the sense that he shows ingratitude.
Right? So it's wrong. He has ingratitude. Ingratitude. Right? The fact that God acted on Nabal means Nabal was not right. Uncompassionate. Now, worst of all is he knows that or even if he don't know, he can easily confirm that he benefited a lot from these people. Even the servants were more grateful. Right? The sin of ingratitude. Now then we must learn that God hates this kind of behavior. Now, so young ones in school, if someone help you, all right, and then when they need help, Matthew or Gracia, when someone help you and they need help, are you going to say, well, nobody asked you to help me? Sometimes people are like that, right? Nobody asked you to help me. You want to help me, you help me. Why must I help you in return? Right? Then there are some people who are like that. Can we be like that? No, we must say, no, we must be people who are grateful. We know, and then we should be helpful in return. Do we only help when people help us? No, right? That's a Christian principle. How much more when people do so? We should not be like that. Now, maybe some of you are, you are a manager at work. Be righteous, right? Be righteous. If your worker, you know that something is due to them. Don't withhold. Don't withhold. Never mind. You know, that's his attitude. He's a refugee. He's a refugee. Can treat him anyway. Right? Kind of thing. Well, these are not important people. Yeah, I know they work very hard. Well, they want to work hard. They want to work hard. They want to do extra things. They can do extra things. But why should I appreciate it? Why should I reward them for it? No, I won't. I keep the money for my own promotion, for my own increase. Right? These are bad behaviors. Right? So these are some things that we can learn from this passage. Now, next one. Now that's a follow-up question. Now, was Abigail right? Was Abigail correct to provide help to David and his men against the wishes of her husband? All right, so we know that. Now let's read verses 18, verses 18 to. Okay, verses 18 to 25. 18 to 25, reading. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 bottles of wine and 5 sheep, ready dressed, and 5 measures of parched corn, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. And she said unto her servants, Go on before me. Behold, I come after you. But she told not her husband Nabal. And it was so, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert of the hill, and behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met him. Now David had said, Surely in vain have I kept all this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him, and he hath requited me with evil for good. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David. I leave all that pertain to him by the morning light, and he that pisseth against the wall. And when Abigail saw David, she hasted and lighted off the ass, and fell before David on the face, and bowed herself to the ground, and fell at his feet, and said, Upon me, my Lord, upon me, let this iniquity be. And let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience, and hear the words of thine handmaid. Let not, my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial. even Nabal, for his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. And I, thine handmaid, saw not the young man of my Lord whom thou didst send. Now, so the question is, was Abigail right to provide help to David and his men against the wishes of her husband? What do you think? All right, since Adrian is here, what do you think about Abigail?
She was right because she saw what Nabal did was evil.
She was right because she saw what Nabal did was evil, but she went against the wishes of her husband.
He was sinning, so that was...
All right, he was sinning. He was sinning. So she should not need to obey. Now, obedience. What do you think? Is it right or not? Mandy. What Abigail did is right. Why? It's good for the husband, protection. Okay? Right. The wife thinks about the husband, right? Now, two reasons that we can see from here. Number one, that she was not wrong in that sense is, number one, remember, obedience, submission to the husband is always in the Lord also. Right? Wives, submit unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. As unto the Lord. Now, so these are difficult situations. But before I go further, and I want to say this just in case I forget, please don't take this as the standard way to respond. Every time I disobey, it's okay, it's correct. Examine very carefully before you say, well, I can, in this area, I don't submit to my husband. Right? So, what Nabal did was ungrateful, was not according to how the Israelites were taught to live. Now also there was the other case where she also knew there's a need to protect life. Why she responded very quickly and why she quickly jumped off the ass and said, on me. And he said, I didn't know, you know. And what my husband did was not correct. Now was to protect the husband and to protect the servants. All right, so the principle of protection of life was very clearly here as well. So she had to stop that, and to stop that, she was also not doing something that was directly sinful. All right. Well, some may say there was no specific instruction to Abigail that she was not allowed to do it. Well, you can argue that as well. Now, we just had the marriage vow taken, right? We just had the marriage vow taken. I will love you, and then on all that I have, I bestow, right? I bestow. All my goods I bestow. So what is the husband's belongs to the wife. What the wife's belong to the husband, right? It's common. It's common. Now, what happened if one day your husband say, cannot tithe? I do not want to tithe. What are you going to do? Are you saying, oh, I must submit to my husband, so I don't tithe? Should you do that? Well, you know the commandment is clear, right? So you do not sin to submit. Did she have time to talk to the husband? She didn't. Case usually best sit down and talk. Run through scriptures. There's a disagreement, go through scriptures. What does God say how we ought to live? What does God command? Right? Talk through it. But in this case, there was no time to talk. Right? She did what was not sinful, what Israelites would do, and she had to do it quickly because lives were at stake. Right? So that is a very unique situation. So please, wives, don't always say, I'm like Abigail. Right? Be very careful how you want to use this example. Be very careful. But I don't think it was good of her to say, well, this man of Belial. Even Nabal, for his name is so is he. Nabal, his name is folly, fool. I don't think there was a need for her to say, my husband's a fool. He's a fool. Even his name is a fool. All right? And he's a son of this man of Belial, that kind of thing. I don't think that was correct. That was not necessary. All right? That was not necessary. So she's not right in that sense. Okay, so so now these are a few things that we have to learn. Don't be like Nabal. Nabal was a very proud man, and he looked down on those that he feels are like David, refugees, people who are despised. Don't be like that, right? And especially if these people that did help you, think of them and help them in return when they need help. So be that. Next is even when you have helped, even we have helped someone, and you want to ask for help, learn to be like David in his first stage. Very humble, not expecting, very careful, right? But also learn not to be like David in wanting to take revenge yourself. Learn to be like Abigail. Now Abigail, as you read, was calm and thinking very carefully, was concerned about behaviors that are sinful, was concerned about protection of life, right? So she was a calm woman who did what that was right. So wives sometimes, when the husband wants to do something sinful, wrong, or has done something wrong, now learn to be a wife that helps. Remember, you are help that is suited for him. He have this weakness, then humbly help. Learn to help the person calmly, think through carefully. Alright, so that is why you become a help to him. Okay, so any follow-up question on this? Okay, so I think this is an interesting question from a story. What do we have here? Top 5 reasons why church dropouts, what church dropouts say, why they stop attending church. Now please remember 66% of, well, I take the American view, they are the most readily available results. They stop attending church at least a year after turning 18. So from